Hey friends, welcome to the Angie Ambrosetti Show, Let Her Out to Play. I'm Angie, your host, a teenage mom turned multi-six-figure earner, married to the same man for nearly 40 years. I'm a homeschooling mom of 7 and totally unqualified, at least on paper, but wildly called by God. Remember, He doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Here, we are going to talk about it all. Healing from the hard stuff, building a business with heart, raising a big family, walking in faith, and finally breaking free from the lies that said we weren't enough. So if you're ready to stop playing small, shake off the doubt and the shame, and step fully into who you were created to be, girl, you are in the right place. Let's go. Hey, friends, and welcome back to the Angie Ambrosetti Show, Let Her Out to Play. I am so thrilled today to be on here with my best friend from high school. Guys, like, you don't know what it's like to be able to hold on to friendships for, I don't know, 40-ish plus years. I am not good with my numbers. And when I start thinking that it's been 40 something years since I graduated from high school, I'm like, no, that can't be right, but we know it is, so that's fine. So today's episode is super duper close, near, and dear to my heart because, like I said, I am sitting down with someone that I have known and loved ever since high school. And there was a time when we weren't connected as we left high school and went on into our adult life and everything, but the Lord reconnected us several years ago, and I'm so thankful for it. She is more than a friend. She is like a sister to me because I never had a sister. She has a very powerful story of resilience, of growth, and of motherhood. And you guys are going to be so blessed by what she shares today. She became a mom at the age of 19 and had her second baby on the way by the time she was 20. Let that sink in for just a minute. And she was a single mom. She got through those hard times. And guess what else? We actually lived together when we were in high school for about 6 months during our junior year. So we've got some stories to tell. We're probably not going to share a bunch of those on this episode today, but some might come out. And stay tuned because I'm sure we'll be doing some other interviews as time goes on. So without further ado, I want to welcome my sweet friend, Melissa Masters, to our call today. She is a social media manager guru, is what I like to call her, because I love what she's doing. She's a virtual assistant. She is a proud mama of 2 and an even prouder Yee of 2. And I always have to ask her ahead of time, is it Yee or Yaya? Because we have another Yaya in our life. So it's Yee. And I know she loves those grandkids. And you know me, I love to talk about grandkids. So I love to hear others talk about theirs as well. So welcome to the call today, my friend.
Hi, Angie. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here and talk about my journey as a teenage mother, especially with you, because I was
Yeah.
there in the beginning when you started your love story and became a teenage mom as well. So let's get to the dirty.
Yeah, let's get down to it, friend. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're just going to jump right into this, guys. So just buckle
Okay.
up, get ready. If you need to take a quick break and go get your coffee or your water or your pink drink, whatever you're drinking these days, sit down and let's do it. So, all right, girl, let's go back. Let's go back to 1986. We clarified that. That
Yeah.
is when we became really close besties. We lived together. And shortly after that, my friend, you found out you were expecting that beautiful baby that you have now. So take us back there. Take us to that time. Give us a little insight.
Okay. So take you back to the time when I actually like the day that I found out, or you was,
Yeah.
yeah.
You start where you're comfortable. You start there
Okay.
or whatever. You tell us.
I mean, it's been 30 plus years. We won't say how many. So you have to think a little bit about those times. But what I remember very clearly, I think I had just maybe missed a few cycles, didn't think much of it. And then I noticed a few pounds were picked up. So I started to have a little morning sickness. So I decided to take a pregnancy test. It showed up positive. Yikes. So called, made a doctor's appointment, had called and let my mother know there was maybe a possibility and kind of just waited until I went to see the doctor. With that being said, I did have my appointment. I remember leaving there super excited, so happy at the possibilities. Even though being a young teenage mom, I was excited at all the changes that maybe were coming for me and what that would mean for my future. So I met up with my mom in the parking lot of the doctor's office. I don't think we ever even got out of our cars. We just spoke through the window. And my excitement was shattered pretty quick. She was not happy, to say the very least. I mean, we lived in a smaller town back then. We were from Yorktown, Indiana, more conservative community. My mother definitely came from a more conservative generation. This is not what she had planned for her baby girl all these years, to become pregnant as a teenager. Um, it was a scary time. It was a challenging time. So she had disowned me at the time, swore she was leaving town. She could never show her face again. It was devastating for me. So I think I remember just being very hurt and heartbroken, pretty shocked. I thought she would be as excited as I was, maybe to become a grandma, and that wasn't the reaction that I got at all. So I left that conversation crying all the way home. And I think I went and talked to my dad, and
Mm,
he had kind of give me some reassurance that things would, we would figure things out. We'll work it out and it'll be okay. So we kind of went from there.
yeah. So tell me about so you had missed a couple cycles and you took the pregnancy test. Do you remember? No, this would have been before you went to the doctor. Do you remember like what was going through your mind at the moment that you saw basically the two pink lines, I'm assuming, on the pregnancy test?
I think I was pretty terrified at first, which would be a natural reaction for being as young as I was, being an 18-year-old, having no idea what I was going to do. So, yeah, I was pretty scared. But then the more I thought about it, like I think pretty much after day one, I was just so excited to be a mom. I always just wanted to be a mom, so it was pretty exciting for me, despite having not the first clue what I was going to do about any of it.
Yeah. And so at that time, were you living with your mom at that time?
I was living with my mom at the time, and then quickly moved to my dad's, went to my father's apartment until I found a place for me and the baby to live
Hmm.
before we got our first apartment. Yeah.
So when you got to the doctor's office, and I'm assuming, like, I remember for me, like, I was just going in to get my yearly renewal for birth control. I had no idea that I could possibly even be pregnant, although clearly I was doing the things that you have to do to get pregnant. And when the doctor told me, I was very blown away. I was even like, what do you mean? What do you mean I'm pregnant? Like, what does that mean? And
Right.
I'm sure he thought, oh, dear girl, you're going to have a crazy life ahead of you if you don't know what this means. But when the doctor confirmed to you that you were indeed pregnant, did you have some emotions? Was it excitement? Were you fearful? Was it all of the things at once?
It was all the things at once. I was very excited. I was terrified to tell my mom, although I was praying and hoping that she would be just as excited for me. I kind of knew that wasn't how that was going to go for me. So, um, yeah, it was an exciting time. I remember it being very exciting for me, despite the fear that I had and worry about everyone's judgment and concerns. And
Did you
uh,
feel like that was going to give you a sense of something like having this baby of your own and just the joy of what a new life potentially could bring for your
absolutely.
future?
Absolutely, I did. I had been going through a time in life in high school, like when it came about that I lived with you and your mother, where my parents were going through their own challenges in life and I was changing schools. I had always gone to the same school my entire life. So this was new for me to change schools in high school, three different high schools. I was always trying to fit in. I I just never really felt like I belonged anywhere. So the idea of having something that was my very own, that was just going to love me for me,
Hmm.
that that was huge for me. Absolutely. I was excited for that.
I love that. And so when you were face to face with your mother and you gave her the confirmation that indeed the doctor said, confirmed through urine samples, I'm guessing, that you were indeed pregnant and you were going to have a baby. What do you recall the most impactful words possibly that your mom said to you at that time? Can
You're
you
not going to be
recall?
able to, yeah. She said, you're not going to be able to do this. How are you going
And,
to raise a child? You can't even take care of yourself.
and thinking back to that, now again, this has been some time, right? And here we are in our
Yep.
50s. We're always going to use that as our fallback. We're in our
Oh,
50s. We have to kind of forget, we forget sometimes. Um, how did that impact your heart when you heard those words? Because we know um, that words are said to us. When we were younger, people would say, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never harm me. That is one of the biggest lies out there because words do hurt us and words get stuck in that part of the brain called the amygdala and they remain there for a long, long time. And so I was just wondering if you can recall how that made you feel when she said that.
well, I mean, I already had very low self esteem. I didn't have a strong group of friends. Like, I remember looking back because of all the moves that I had made when we lived together. That was like the best times in high school for me, because I was a part of a group finally and my friends from childhood and we had all these great times. But outside of that, I was pretty isolated from people already. So that my mom, was everything to me. So it crushed me pretty good. It made me feel very insecure, very scared, unsure of myself and what I was going to do. And could I actually do it?
Yeah, I'm sure. I know we've probably all had things said to us over the years. I know I have as well. And those things, they stick with us and
Always.
they can really impact the way that we show up, the way that we relate to ourselves, for sure. So, what would you say were some of the biggest fears or the challenges that you faced as a young teenage mom? Because now you're expecting, and you told us that your dad helped you get a place and all the things, but still, I'm certain because I was there myself, but my story is a little bit different. What were the fears and the challenges that you faced?
Well, we talked about, a few of the fears, just being afraid of what I was going to do, working, all the things. Some of the challenges, first off, was even just where am I going to live and how am I going to, you can't get a job when you're pregnant and you have no high school diploma. And then you have to find a place to live. So there was the stigma, of first of all being a pregnant teenager in that society. It wasn't quite as acceptable back then. I mean, not that it is now, but it was a little different then.
Hmm.
So I remember getting my first apartment. We were on assistance, food stamps and welfare, and it was this tiny little upstairs one bedroom apartment in just the worst part of town. And I was terrified every night, when people would knock on the doors next door. I had no telephone, no car. I would walk in the snow with my baby in tow to the grocery store once a month. Like, it was very challenging and it was could be very scary at times, but we did it. That's what I did and that's how it all started, and just things
Wow.
kind of went from there.
So, you know how we always, some of us talk about, yeah, we had to walk to school in the snow barefooted and it was 3 miles down the road with a coat with no buttons or whatever. Like you literally have some of that story. It wasn't to school, but it was to the grocery store. It was with your baby in tow. But as moms, we do what we have to do, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I would have to walk blocks just to find a payphone if the baby was sick or something was wrong and it didn't matter the weather and to just call my parents and go, "Hey, I need something." Or so yeah, it could be quite challenging at times. But you do
Wouldn't
what you have to do.
right. Wouldn't it have been convenient back then if we had cell phones?
Oh my gosh. Would I that would have been really nice. Yeah. To say the least.
I remember thinking, my grandmother told me once when I was younger, oh, someday they're going to have a screen on the phone and you're going to be able to see people from halfway around the world. And I thought, she crazy. She's off her rocker. Of course, she was in her 70s, and I was thinking that was so old. But once you get to 50 and beyond, 70 is not that old for sure.
Yeah. Not looking too bad these days.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so talk to us a little bit more about, you said you baby number 2 was on the way at about the age of 20. And what kept you going during those young years? I mean, 19 to 20, now baby number 2 is on the way and you're a single mom.
Yeah. Baby number 2 came really fast. So mom was not happy about that either. So there was some pressure about marriage, maybe giving the baby up for adoption. That that wasn't an option for me in my, the way I felt about things. So I had a little kickback, a little fighting about that. It was a rough time for me, I did end up getting the support of my family and my parents. I look back, and I think I isolated myself and alienated myself a lot from people, that I maybe assumed that were ashamed of me or disappointed at the choices and decisions I made to have 2 kids so young. And but eventually, things worked out with that. But during those times, it was still very challenging. So my kids are what kept me going. I love my kids. I made a decision. I was going to do whatever I had to do to show them, that they could have whatever kind of life they wanted to have. So at the end of the day, that was my drive behind it.
Yeah, kids definitely push us to be our best and show up the best way that we can. What do you feel like were some of those judgments or assumptions of judgment that maybe you had in your mind that you were facing from others? Like, I know your mom, here you said again, like she wasn't happy. Now, baby number 2 is on the way. But like, what kind of support system did you have outside of that? And what judgments or assumed judgments were you making about yourself that you thought others were playing into that?
Well, I mean, I had support from friends and from the church. And like I said, I did have support from my family. But looking back at myself, I think I became very untrusting because I just assumed that everyone looked at me like I had poor moral judgment. I had all these failed relationships that I had tried looking for the wrong things because of my insecurities, thinking that I had to be married because I had 2 kids,
Hmm.
because of the mistakes made, trying to figure it all out and like, I'll show you kind of attitude, it was hard. I lost track of the question.
That's okay. It was just thinking about, I think you answered it there. You're just thinking about what you felt like people were judging you on and basically how you went through it and you overcame that, which you clearly have. And so thinking about becoming a mom so young, what pitfalls did you come across along the way? Because, you were having some issues with mom. Now that baby number 2 is on the way, there's still that thing. And you're young, you're living in an apartment by yourself, no modern day conveniences, so to speak, for, the way we live today, right? And what pitfalls would you say came along that some you kind of stumbled over? Like, we all stumble over things, but for you as a young mom, and even now in, at 20, that's still very young and basically just getting over those teenage years, what pitfalls came along that maybe stumbled you up a bit?
Well, I mean, we are very young at 20 years old. I suffered from a lot of anxiety and depression very early on with the kids as I was just trying to navigate life and figure out what I was doing. And later on in my 20s, I suffered from substance abuse. I can remember a time when my kids were probably 4 and 5 years old where I had to send my son to his dad's for 6 or 7 weeks. And I sent my daughter down south with family for the summer just so that they wouldn't know what was going on, and to give them a better environment, why I had to go away and get treatment for that, and it's the pitfalls of just trying to figure it out on your own, trying to work and be in school and manage the kids being in school. And are you doing the right things? And, are you taking the right medications for your depression and anxiety? You're seeing all the doctors and, there's a whole lot to it.
Right, exactly. And so you clearly had support there from your son's father, and then your other family. They were supporting you and being willing to love you through those things. I was on a call earlier today with another mom, and we were just talking about how um, she kind of felt like the Lord was punishing her because things didn't necessarily go the way she thought they would from being pregnant as a teenage mom. And I was just reminding her, because I remind myself of this a lot, is that the Lord, well, actually, a friend told me this one time. She's like, if the Lord didn't allow things to go our way as a punishment because of sin, what a jerk he would be. And I was like, that's right. And that is not who he is. He is a loving, gracious, merciful father, and he loves us through our difficult times, through our difficult decisions. Wouldn't you say?
I would absolutely agree with that 100%. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without the support of the Lord. I mean, he's got me through everything.
Yeah. And so, just like the scenario of the woman in the Bible where, they wanted to throw stones at her, and the Lord was like, hey, who of you are without sin? Be the first to throw the stone. And they all walked away.
Yeah.
And so I want to remind myself of that so frequently when any of my judgment or my controlling or my perfectionism comes out. I want to remind myself of that God is a gracious and loving God. And he clearly has blessed you in your life with these amazing kids and just all the things that he has provided in your life. And I love that. And so another question for you, my friend, is
Okay.
becoming a mom so young, how did that change your view of yourself for your future? Like, we didn't really talk about in the beginning, what goals and dreams had you set for yourself, or had you set any? And if not, that's totally fine too. But tell us a little bit about that. Had you set anything up for the future before you found out you were pregnant? And if so or not, how did that change what it looked like for you?
Well, I had intended on being a hairdresser. I did go to beauty school for a short amount of time, and I always wanted to open my own beauty salon. So my grandmother on my father's side, I never got to meet her, God rest her soul, but I do carry her name. She was a hairdresser, and it was just something I was always interested in. So
Mhm.
that was a goal that I had had. I never really finished it out. I did open a studio in aesthetics a few years back. It's something I still love. I may do again. So that's been fun. But I think during my younger years, I kind of just set all that aside, and that's when I started working the job I have now, I've had for the past 30 years, and, doing some of the things that I do on the side. So I don't know that I've always had like a goal in mind from the beginning looking forward. I'm more of a day by day kind of person, but I
Yeah,
like to take what's thrown at me and be challenged and just keep moving along. So it's something I've
that's
always
awesome.
kind of tried to do.
Yeah. So, what is the one thing that you would tell that Melissa that was 18, that let's just call her that little girl inside, because when you're 18, you're not 5, but you're still a little girl. You're still young at heart. You still are, mommy's little girl, daddy's little girl. And so if you could go back and talk with her, what would you tell her today?
I would definitely tell myself, that little girl, to believe in yourself a little bit more and love yourself, be kind to yourself, and that you've totally got this, that you can do it.
Absolutely. I love that. It's so good. I just love hearing this. It's giving me goosebumps, actually. And so, how would you say that your journey as a young mom has influenced the way that you parent today? So, even though your children are grown now, and we're going to hear about them in just a minute, but even though they're grown now, how do you feel like you are parenting today based on the fact that you've been parenting for what, 36 years now?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think it's a total advantage. First of all, I get to be a young grandmother, which is amazing. Um, but I think most of all, because I've had so many setbacks, made so many mistakes, had so many hard challenges with being a teenage mom, that I have a lot of wisdom to share.
Mhm.
And we all know that our children they're grown in different times than we grew up in, and they have different challenges to face than we do. And I'm just really lucky and blessed to have some of the wisdom and knowledge that I have about life and about people and about situations, to be able to walk them through, some of their difficult times as adult children.
Right. Yeah, that's good because this is totally a different time.
Mm. Yeah.
The times do change, and we have seen so many changes since back in here's me getting my time frame wrong, right? The 80s, the
The
late 80s.
1900s is what
Yeah.
my granddaughter would say.
Oh dear, that really makes us feel old, right?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. So now that we're both in our 50s, and now that you're in your 50s as well, and thank you for always reminding me that you're younger than I am, just for my friends listening. What are the most proud moments that you have had on your motherhood journey? Tell us about those amazing kids that you have.
They are fantastic. There's so many proud moments. They both they're both Christians. They're both very loving, generous, kind-hearted souls. They love their mama like no other. They Gosh, I could just go on for hours. It'd be good. I could do a whole episode on my kids. They've built beautiful lives for themselves. Like I said, I have a beautiful granddaughters too, a fabulous son-in-law. My son and daughter both have long list of accolades. I'm very proud of them personally, professionally. I love them dearly. And I mean, I'm just so blessed with them. I don't think anybody could ask for a better relationship than I have with my two adult children, and I'm very grateful and thankful for that.
That's awesome. And now I know that they live close to you. That is so amazing. I love that my kids live close as well because you get to see your grandkids all the time, right?
Yeah, and then it's great. We spend about as much time together as we all can. So
Yeah.
any chance we get, we're together.
That's awesome. I love it. And I was just going to say that. So, my grandkids, they do this too. A couple of my granddaughters, they're always like, they think I'm cool. And I know your grandkids think you're cool too. And so, what a fun journey it is to have a friendship for so long, be able to encourage one another. And like you said, you were there in the beginning when my husband and I started our journey together. Like, what did you think back then? So we're talking about okay, so timing again, 1988 is when I found out I was expecting. And do you remember having any thoughts? Do you remember and it totally, like, you can be honest,
Okay.
because a lot of people thought a lot of things that I didn't really care for, but that's okay because, like, the proof is in the pudding now 40 years later.
Yeah. I have to say, I'm not surprised at all that it's 40 years later. You two have been the cutest since day one, so in love. And I've always watched, or always enjoyed watching, sorry. I've always enjoyed watching you guys and your entire love story. In my book, it's turned out exactly like I thought it would be. Maybe because I know you and I know your hopes and dreams, or I knew them back then. And
Hmm.
I don't think you could have a more perfect partner in life. And I'm just so honored to be a part of it and to get a secondhand seat to watch it all. It's been amazing to see the beginning and now see the middle of your lives and how much growth there's been and all the children and all the changes and where you're going. And it's pretty amazing.
Well, first of all, thank you for calling it the middle and not the end. Because yes, in our 50s, we're just in the middle of all of the crazy. So thank you for those words, my friend, because that's not one of the things that we talked about ahead of time. But I want to ask you this one last question.
Okay.
I want to know when you saw that my podcast was launching, and we've been talking about it, but when I came up with the tagline, let her out to play, what were your initial thoughts? And again, don't hold back, like be honest. Like that is just one of the things that I want to know from people. What were you thinking when you heard let her out to play? How did you think that was going to play out?
I thought, yes, finally, it's time. It's about time. I'm ready for it.
Well, thank you, friend. And thank you so much for being on today. Thank you for being vulnerable, and sharing those parts of your life that maybe you haven't really shared publicly before, but I know it's going to encourage and help someone. So I'm just so thankful for this conversation today, for the decades of friendship that we have shared. And I just want to say to you listeners, if you are listening today and you've ever felt like your past somehow disqualifies you, let this story be the one that reminds you that God's grace writes the best chapters, the best version for you. It's not about how you start. It's about how you rise up. It's about how you love. It's about how you keep showing up with perseverance. And if this episode has moved you in any way, would you please share it with a friend today or send us a message and let us know what part hit home for you. And hey, don't forget to leave us a review. And if you're loving these real, raw, and healing conversations, let us know about it. Until next time, friends, let her out to play. That's it for today, friends. Thanks for tuning in with me today. I hope today's episode stirred your soul, sparked your faith, and reminded you that your story is far from over. Keep walking in freedom. Keep showing up bold, and never forget, God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Be sure to leave a review, subscribe, or share this podcast with a friend who needs to hear it as well. Until next time, keep letting her out to play because the world needs your fire.